Welcome to The Trophy Life, the podcast that asks the question, aside from the awards and medals, what skills and benefits do participants gain from organized competition that offer them an advantage over those who sit on the sidelines? Today we welcome guest Tim Dielinski. Tim has been a member of Team USA. He retired in 2019 after a nearly 20-year amateur career. He had a major breakthrough, finishing third at the novice level at the national championships, second at junior at the national championships, which earned him a spot on the junior world team. Tim went on to skate at more than a dozen senior international competitions, including 2 Grand Prix for Team USA. Let's welcome Tim. Hey, Tim.
Hi.
Did I do your intro justice?
Yes, you did. You did.
Fantastic. So what have you been up to? You retired in 2019.
Yes.
And
So I did Nationals 2019, and then I was on a cruise ship doing shows by the very end of March.
Okay, now how do you transition? How do you even find out? Do you have to have a resume? How do you get a job on a cruise ship?
So you have to submit audition videos, and then depending on if they like you or not, then that you get in. But yeah, basically there's a company that Ships uses that you email, and they start you with the process for that.
Okay. Now, what kind of you have an impressive resume. So do you have to be of like that top 6 at senior to get a job, or?
Oh no. Show skating is so different from competitive skating. I mean, you don't even have to be a very good competitor or really compete well. But, you need to be able to do a few triples, to do on the ships. But it's really about how you work with the audience, and it's really about being a showman, basically. So you don't have to have this expert caliber competition background.
Right.
If you love skating and you achieved a certain amount of success, it's
Or
definitely an
competency,
avenue.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an avenue that I think skaters should think about exploring if they
Fantastic.
can.
Yeah. All right. Where did your ship bring you? I mean, I feel like it's the merchant marines of figure skating, where you're like in a different port. You get to, visit different people, and there's such an eclectic mix of like global representation as guests on the ship. So where did your ship, what was
So the ship I was on last year was stationed in Miami, which is home. And then it basically did several different itineraries, Eastern and Western Caribbean. So mostly it stayed in the Caribbean, and there are ships all over the world. There's ships in Europe, there's ships in Asia. And I'm hoping to get on one of those someday. But yeah, I was tooling around all of the Caribbean last year. Same climate the whole year. So.
And what are the accommodations like? Do you get picked up by a limo? Are they like paparazzi? Like, what is it? Tell us what it's like. Because I think we have this distorted idea, right? That you're a star on a ship.
No. So yeah, you definitely, you're not treated, at least in the overall process, you're not treated, any different than any other crew member. But what we have over what the performers, at least when I say we have over a lot of the other cruise ship staff, is that we have a pretty good life and a pretty good schedule, work wise. We do have a lot of free time. A lot of other cruise ship workers, they work morning to night, all day, every day, no breaks. So so we're privileged in that respect, but we aren't treated any differently, I would say.
And do you get to, like, I know the food, everyone says, oh, I gained my 10-pound cruise. This is my cruise weight or whatever. Like, how, is there a healthy section? Like, what do you eat with the population of the guests, or do you have cruise quarters? Like, where?
So as a performer, we are given special privileges, and they can change depending on ship, depending on who's in charge.
Right.
But yes, we have a crew mess, which we will eat at.
Right.
And depending on the ship, mostly it's, it's pretty good. It's not the best, but they do, I think, have, a variety of foods to eat. But we can eat at the specialty restaurants on the ship. We just have to pay. We have to pay for those. And sometimes we're able to eat in some of the guest buffets, depending on the rules specifically. But yeah, but the only thing we have to do is if we are in guest area at all, we have to wear our proper uniform.
And what was that? What?
So during the day we have these.
Did you look like you were in the Air Force or something, or what?
Not really, but like we'll have these Royal Caribbean T-shirts, and we have our name tag, so it's clear that
like the Love Boat.
Yeah,
you're too young for that, but there was a show called The Love Boat, and
yes, I am too young.
And the bartender even looked like he was like an admiral in the military. So, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, we just had to wear our proper uniform whenever we were out in guest area. But other than that, we have free reign. We can go pretty much anywhere.
Now, I understand that you were on the ship when the pandemic broke out. Tell us what happened, because everyone's complaining about, I can only go to the store, and I can only go to the park and run 4 miles, and I can only tell us what you could only do when you were on the ship and for how long.
Okay, so my ship was special that this was the second contract I started because I had 2 months off, and then I started in February, and we were coming out. That ship was coming out of a dry dock where it's out of service for a while. They fix it up, they take it out of the water, and we had just come back for one cruise. We were on our first cruise after the dry dock. We were in the middle of that first week, and that week was when things were starting to go exponentially up, like throughout the world. That's when it exploded. So we canceled all the cruises. We let the guests off, but didn't get on any more. Then at that time we didn't know. There was a lot of like, we don't know what we're going to do. We were going to be off for a certain amount of time, I think is what they decided, but they didn't know how long. We didn't know if it was going to be a month, whatever. I think the whole world at that point didn't really know how long and how big this actually was going to be. So eventually we were a few weeks without guests, and it was nice in the beginning, we had nothing to do really. But they closed a lot of the areas down the ship to try to protect it and keep it looking nice. So like there really wasn't much to do. And then they decided to put all the crew in lockdown, they put us all in our cabins. And they gave us all guest cabins at that point, which was good. So we had at least some kind of window. Most people, I was lucky enough to get a balcony, which was really nice. But they basically wanted to see if any, throughout that one first cruise we had where we had the guests on, if any of the coronavirus got on the ship at all. And so we did a full 2-week quarantine, everybody in their cabins, to see if any cases popped up. The food and beverage staff, there was a few people that still had to work in order to bring everybody food every meal. We had food, hands down to them, because that must have been really hard. They were working really hard for 2 weeks straight. But luckily our ship ended up not having any cases at all. So we were allowed out of our rooms. But even after that point, we were supposed to wear masks anytime we were out of our cabin. And we had to social distance as well. So they were just being very safe. But the whole experience, it was kind of crazy, fun. But by the end, when you're stuck on there, I was stuck on there from the time that we had no guests and to the time I got off, it was 2 full months. And by the end, I was just ready to go. Everybody was, because there wasn't anything to do. I joked that people were like, oh, it must have been great to be stuck on a cruise ship, whatever. And I'm like, yes, in the beginning, but you can get used to anything. And I got sick of that balcony ocean view, actually, because it's the only thing I could see.
Right.
And when I finally came home, I was so thrilled to see trees and grass and dirt and smell it too. Like like, I remember coming back and being like, I could smell the springtime too. And it was just it was almost euphoric. It just, smelling it. So it was really great, but it was a cool experience that I will remember forever.
Well, that, something came out of that isolation for you because you gained, respect for things that perhaps you could have taken for granted, like dirt and grass and freedom to run, right? Yeah. Because I'm sure you really
go
couldn't
to the store.
Yes. Or just, say thank you to people, right? That, say hello and good morning. So in skating, let's take us back to your competitive days. And how would you describe your competitive mindset? Like, how did you push yourself through? First of all, did you ever have like a competition anxiety? And if you did, like, what was your go plan, to work yourself through that?
So I feel like a lot of skaters, when you start out and you're a little kid, when you go out to compete and you're like just this happy little puppy and it's just everything's easy and you're excited to go show people. Yeah. So, it starts out like that. And then as you get older, you become, around the teenage years and you, like everybody, you finally realize you're like, wow, this is a lot of pressure. There's people watching me. Yeah. Your adult brain sets in. And so I did start to feel a little bit more anxious, nervous, and less, normal nerves at some point. But one of the things that I always tried to remind myself was that I love to do it, that I love to show people my passion for skating. So I always try to remind myself of that. And also just the mindset of take it one thing at a time. Yes. One thing at a time, constantly, psychologists are like, keep your mind on the present. Your mind doesn't work well in the past or the future. So taking it one thing at a time. And a lot of the times when I skated my best, I was completely in the present. I wasn't thinking about what I had done or what was coming up. And I think that's something that I always try to remind myself. And sometimes it didn't always work, even though that's what I was trying to think about. But yes, if I would take away anything, I would say one thing at a time.
Remind us of a competition that you were in that zone where you were just landing and then people were on their feet before that last spin.
Yeah, I would say for me, that would be my Skate Canada Long program that I did in 2015 was probably the best single skate that I ever had.
Canadian audience is awesome.
Yeah, yes. They're really great.
Yeah. They love skating. It's always so invigorating to be in the audience with Canadians. Yeah, in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed my experience. But yeah, I was totally, it almost felt like I was in a trance, so to speak, at least in that instance. And I feel like, that doesn't happen all the time and you don't have to skate well to be in that. But and I was mad from not skating well in the shorts. So I was really fueled by anger and in a trance. But it was almost like I didn't think at all. I was just doing, your body. I think a lot of the time skaters forget that, you train so hard, your body knows what to do and you just have to trust it. I feel like that's kind of where a lot of the hangups happen is, you don't trust yourself.
Right.
And when you trust yourself, then you're confident.
Right? And the training that you've been doing.
And the training, yeah. So you don't realize what an incredible machine you are until just trust yourself.
I've heard that from other athletes that they say that when their best skates have come from instead of doing it for not doing it for the medal or for the qualifying whatever or for the prize money, they just do it. And sometimes it takes that the short program that has no jumps, that you're like waltz jump. I hope they think that was just fancy footwork. I'm going to try and do an axel over here. And then you don't do it. And you just have one of those nightmare that you think please let me wake up. I know I'm in kiss and cry, but I think I'm actually in bed. right? I'm not really here. And
Yeah,
I'm
we've
sure
all been
that
there.
I've witnessed them from, I've never been a competitive skater, but I have seen that expression where people are just in disbelief that they didn't recognize they were in someone else's body, right? And then it's the next skate after that they just show up and
Yeah.
they do it
And
because they can.
it's kind of one of those things where it sounds simple,
Yeah.
you just don't think and trust yourself. And it is, and
Right.
it's easy to kind of say, okay, well, that's all you have to do. But in reality, it can be a little bit more difficult than that. But yeah, I mean, there really is something to that. I think that when you just trust yourself and trust your hard work and your training, and you're just there.
Right. Right. You're not
When
in that next moment, like, are people going to clap or, am I going
Yeah,
to,
no, none of that.
am I going to get that extra GOE on this? Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And those kinds of skills is what I am impressed with that competitive participation, because it's those kinds of skills that you are actually connecting to something in the moment that I think serve people when they leave competitive sport, competitive academics, when they go into a profession or even a hobby or some sort of, side work, that they can use those habits that were developed in competition. So
Yeah.
how would you say that skating helped you cope with being isolated for 2 months?
Well, I would say a lot of skating and a lot of, this quarantine that we're all in is, in skating, there's a lot of things that happen outside of your control, and that skating teaches you the only thing you can control is the way you skate on this day and at this time. You can't control what the judges think of you. You can't control, how the other skaters skate. And I think that can relate, at least especially into this quarantine situation that we're all in, that it's not in our control. Like,
Right.
we can't do anything about it. And especially for me on the ship, and even when I got off the ship and, I've had all this free time, and while it's been great, since I've been go my whole life, having all this downtime I'm tired of it now. But I had kept having to come back to myself and saying, you can't control it. It's the way it is. So the best thing you can do is just enjoy it while you have it. Like, don't take this for granted. There's things that you can find to do, whether I was stuck on the ship or at home now, that you can better yourself. You can continue to work, but also, just be in the moment and enjoy it while it happens, because I've heard stories of all the people, saying, oh, I've been able to see family that I haven't gotten to see, I've got to spend time with them, So like thinking about those things and being thankful for that, and knowing that I can't change it, I might as well make the best of it kind of mentality. I think
that's important.
Something that skating has also taught me as well.
And I think if you walked away from a competition, a coach might say to you, now like, if you're the first up after the 6-minute warm up, to cool it down that last minute. Don't skate your heart out and try 3 extra triple jumps, and so that your heart is racing when you start the program. Like, now
Yeah.
So,
or if you're one of those people that don't like being first after the 6-minute warm up, and keeping that and dragging that around with you and throughout, whenever, and you're like, oh man, instead of dragging that with you, you just accept it, say, I can't change it. This is the way it is.
Right.
And move on,
Now, you're a musician.
Yes.
I want to know other secrets that you might have kept from all of your... First of all, what is the craziest question you ever got asked from a fan?
I would say, I don't know if I have any really crazy, some, exactly, but, something that's popping into my head right now is because, I could do a backflip before I retired, and, I would post videos doing it, and I would do it in shows, and people would be like, what, is the backflip really hard? it must be really hard because it's a backflip.
Right.
And I would always be like, no, it's easier than doing a jump. At least I think so. I mean, rotating one time this way is way easier than rotating.
That you can spot, right? You can actually spot it, because I was a gymnast. Yeah, you can spot where you're going. You can't
and there's no half doing it. You either do it or you don't.
Right.
So that's always a question that I always chuckle to myself when people ask me that.
But I will say, though, for you, it is difficult to do something when you're used to rotating a certain way and rotate in that kind of direction. Yeah.
For sure. Like, the learning process is very hard.
Because did you always try and go over your shoulder? Like when you were, because I've seen kids try to practice.
I had a fairly easy time learning it because I could tumble off the ice.
Oh, okay.
So I could do it off the ice already. All I needed was just some people in ropes, some insurance. While I needed some courage mindset so I could just do it.
Yeah.
But I know for a lot of people, it can be a struggle.
Yeah.
But once you master doing the backflip,
right.
I think everybody would agree it's easier than doing a triple, at least. So.
Well, it's a showstopper, and if you have a backflip in your repertoire, you have a leg up, I guess, right?
Yes.
On the competition at auditions for shows.
Yeah. I would encourage anybody who's serious about skating or thinking about going into shows, guy or girl, try to learn that backflip, because it is a really good skill to have in your back pocket. They need people.
Now, so about your music, were you able to, did you have any kind of instrument with you? Do you have a guitar or piano or anything like a electric keyboard with you on the cruise?
No. Usually what I try to do is because they have pianos all over the ship, you just have to, I've learned you have to come in contact and make friends with the people that, the music directors, because they have those, because a lot of them are locked, you have to become friends with the right people to get access to them. That's kind of the thing. And throughout my times, I haven't been on ships that long, but I've learned the best times and the best people to ask to go about doing that. So I was able to play still for the most part. So that was always really nice.
When did you start playing, and what instruments do you play? Because I know if people think I know a lot about skating, which I don't know a lot about skating, and people actually think that I'm super athletic because, I have athletes in the family, and I let them think that, and I let them think I'm really bright in math because all my kids are good in math. So that's not true. But how, when you were practicing, how did you know, like, you were ready to walk away from the amateur sport into professional sport?
I think it's something that comes up a lot throughout a skater's career. If there's a time where you're struggling or whatever, everybody always asks themselves, oh, is it time to quit, or do I not love this anymore? And, most of the times, and that was even starting to happen as a teenager,
right.
Things were getting difficult. But so those moments pop up a lot. And most of the time, like the majority of the time, which is why you keep going, it's, you have that thought and you're immediately like, no, even though it's hard right now, like, yes, I still want to do it. There's things I want to do. But I think the more that would pop up every few years. And I think the more often it starts to happen, or also the desire to do something else starts to come in as well. There's like this overlap that then you might seriously start thinking about maybe it's time to go. But maybe still that competitor and you I have these goals, and even, maybe I really may not enjoy myself. I still want to go because of that, that just is hypothetical. But like for me, I would say I started having that a lot more the last few years that I skated. And for me, the big thing was my body and injuries. And I was lucky. I've been lucky my whole skating career that I've never had too many major injuries. The only things that I've had trouble with is stress fractures. which can slowly crop up. And the only way to stop them is to stop whatever it is you're doing completely, which no athlete wants to do. And so I kind of had moments the last few years of my skating career where I knew I was starting to develop these. They weren't there yet, but I was, my body was giving me the warning signs.
Right.
And it kept happening more and more frequently the last few years that I skated. And finally, towards the very end, I had to realize that, for me, the rest of my life is ultimately more important than, achieving, a goal or having a certain result. I was kind of looking long-term, and the last thing I wanted to happen was, to be injured to the point where I may not be able to do something the rest of my life, or I may, because I want to be, skating has taught me a lot of things, but one of the things it's taught me is, an appreciation for the importance of being active and the love of being active. So I want to continue that into the rest of my life. And I feel like with the demands on the sport that they are now, with the men and the women doing multiple quadruple jumps.
In combination. What?
It's just, the demands on the sport are starting, I feel like, to become the limit of what humans can do. And while they can do them, I feel like the window is smaller and smaller, the time that people can do these things. And so for me, coming back around, it was, I had to decide, this was more important to me than trying to achieve something in skating.
Right.
So I was looking long term. I wanted to be able to be active the rest of my life. And so that was kind of what led me with the decision to quit.
Well, like you were saying, when somebody's in their 20s, mid-20s, I have seen more athletes start crossing or overlapping their passions. And sometimes that's where they start studying the technical aspects, thinking like perhaps they'll resume an academic career and perhaps be a technical specialist, or they'll coach, or they'll do something else. They were like really good at music editing, and they'll start doing that, or designing, making costumes, or stoning or styling. But with your music toward the end, right, you started creating and composing original music that you were, first of all, how did you convince your coach? Because I know how difficult it is to go to your coach and say, I want to do Carmina Burana, or I want to do, this other piece, like, all the skating pieces are like out of my head now.
Right?
Yes. And how do you say to your coach, I've composed my own long program, or I've composed my own short program? Like, how do you do it? And then how do you convince them it's the right choice?
Well, I think it's a testament to my coach that I had for so many years, Debbie Prakar, and Brittany Bottoms, both of them, that I kind of had no pushback from them whatsoever. They knew how talented I was, and they knew my ability. And I think, I honestly don't remember how it happened, because I did it 2 times, and
one at a Grand Prix, right? Wasn't it one for a Grand Prix?
No, I never skated them at a Grand Prix.
Okay.
Senior Grand Prix. I did them at Junior Grand Prix.
Junior. Okay.
Yeah. But I remember I brought them, I gave them the idea. I said, look, this is kind of a project I kind of work on.
Right.
And the first time I did it, it was actually coming off, a season where I didn't make it to nationals.
Right.
My first year in junior. And so this was kind of, my coach encouraged it, because she was like, this is good. This will keep me engaged and not resting on, my disappointment. And so they knew I was working on something. And then I think when I showed them and played it to them, they were like, absolutely, like, you need to do this. So,
were you telling a story? Were you give me the background. Were you telling a story?
So I had no real story with it, because I was just thinking about the music when I was writing it, both times. But it was more of kind of a feeling and a kind of a style that I kind of went with both of them at the time. And I was really cool to get to do it because I feel like not the only other person I've known that has done it is Eric Redford.
Right. I think you did a piece for
and
Patrick.
you wrote for somebody else too,
Patrick
as well.
Chan.
Cool. But yeah, it was a really cool thing to be able to get to do, and I will look back on those times with fondness. So,
you know what I see it like, at 30,000 feet, I see your passion for music being introduced to your passion of skating, and for them to say like, music meet skating, meet music. Please don't compete with each other. I want you two to get along fine.
No, for sure. And this is a whole thing for me, but I think, there's a reason that we skate our programs to music.
Right.
And we don't just go out there and, skate around and do jumps, without music. I think, there's a reason we do that. And I think it's really important as a skater to listen to the music and what is the music telling you to do. I feel like too often so many skaters, they'll have this music and then, for example, like they'll have this, big crescendo or crash or whatever, and they're doing a spin or like they're doing something. I'm like, no, you have to accent it because like when in skating, when you use the music with a dynamic movement or a jump or whatever it is, some kind of move, and you match it to the music, it's so effective. It for me, and as a spectator myself, like I'm like, wow, I love that. Like, so I have that reaction. And so like, I think that's something that the great people do really well. And I think that's something that everyone needs to focus on. And I think, if you need to do in your program, like a certain element, a certain time, or you need the elements to be, this certain way,
right.
Go back to the drawing board musically and try to recut and try to make the music match kind of what you want. Otherwise, I feel like it's really important to do what the music is telling you to do. And if the music's telling you to do something that may be more difficult, then...
Did you do your choreography?
No, I always worked with people for choreography. But I feel like as I got older, I definitely started, playing an more and more active role in my choreography, starting a little bit and growing. By the end, I feel like it was a good percentage. And I was always kind of one of those people that kind of needed just a little bit of help,
clean up.
A little guidance. Yeah. But I never did my own choreo.
Yeah, because I think sometimes skaters start putting in, I spoke to David Wilson a long time ago, and he was saying when a young choreographer starts out, he can recognize their work because they choreograph for themselves. They choreograph the stuff that they're really good at. And a more seasoned choreographer choreographs for that skater. And I think like one of the most brilliant things that I've seen his work was the Dance Macabre of Eunice.
Yes, I love that program.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. So who's one of your favorite choreographers that you worked with?
So I love doing choreography with my longtime coach, secondary coach, Brittany Bottoms. She was really good at doing what was good for me and challenging me at the same time. But I would say the last few seasons, I used Ryan Yankee for probably my all-time favorite program, my Mumford & Sons Awake My Soul program. I used him the first time for that. And then I used him the long that I used for the last 2 seasons, which I really enjoyed as well. I just love working with him because I feel like he is the style that I kind of want to be and I'm drawn to. And I feel like, I remember when I first had the idea that I wanted to work with him, I was like, I just have this feeling and I just know we're both going to click and it's going to be really good. And I would encourage a lot of skaters that, I don't think you necessarily have to work with the highest or, the most
Olympic level,
the most well-known, choreographer. And while they are very good, I don't think you have to do that. I think if you can find somebody that you click with, I think ultimately in the end, that's what's going to bring out the best program. And
you'll have
Ryan,
more time to polish it with that person.
You'll
too.
have more time to polish it. And so I feel like you need to go somebody that you connect with, that will work with you well. And I don't think they necessarily have to be the most well-known in order to put out a good program, I think so.
Right.
But yeah,
I think skaters sometimes fear that, right? They fear it's almost like wearing like a Gucci jacket. Like I feel like it adds something to the ambiance of the presentation, right? But it's not, because honestly, most of the judges they're randomly selected, and especially at internationals, and they're from all different countries. They don't really know the difference between the premier work and someone who's just starting out. I mean, look at for like Roheen. Roheen has made a great name for himself as a choreographer, and over the years. But I mean, when he was just first starting out, he was a competitor. And, he really had to earn his stripes, so to speak, by showing really dynamic presentations, all different, so it doesn't look like him all the time. But yeah, so that's interesting. So Ryan Yankee is a great example of those beautiful extended lines, and I love to take to look at a skater and to be able to like draw the connection from the line from the head to the shoulder, through the knee to the foot. And you're one of those skaters that had beautiful, probably still do, have beautiful lines. One, how does that happen? Did you have a lot of dance training, or is it a natural thing?
I had minimal dance training.
Right.
I think it's just something that I was naturally good at, to an extent. Later it was something that I tried to focus on.
Right.
But I think I was lucky just to naturally have this nice, I guess, body awareness.
Right.
Or even not awareness. It just happened.
So. Alignment. Yeah. When you have a good back, you have good lines. When you have a hunched back or an arched back or rolled shoulders, things are going to get lopsided. So I think you start with a super back. And one thing I was shocked at, and may I say this, that I'm shocked? I thought you were like 6 feet tall. And the first time I met you, I thought like, you're not 6 feet tall. And because I always think people will say to me, when they meet Adam, they're like, I thought he was so much taller. And I'm thinking, how did you think Adam was so much taller? And I got the same thing when I met you. I thought you and Adam are about the same height. And I thought you were 6 feet tall. So I honestly think it's because of those lines that you give that illusion. When you have your arms out in second position and you're doing this beautiful spread eagle across the ice, you look really big, on the ice. So I think that's creates that bigness, where people think you're 6 feet, have to be 6 feet, right?
Yeah, and I am not 6 feet tall.
I'm going to ask you some fast questions, okay? Okay. So let's see, I have them written here. So just give me some quick answers. What is your favorite jump?
The sow cow.
Oh, I've seen you do a quad sow. So
that is the only quad I did.
Is that why it's your favorite, or it's because you're so comfortable in the sow?
Well, I think I just love the way the edge feels going up, and also that's the jump that I can literally. It's the easiest for me to do. Like I never have trouble with it, even to this day. So. Now, is it the easiest, or have you told yourself this? Because this is something that, also I've talked to skaters, and they've convinced themselves that they can't do something because they started telling them I can't do a flip loop. I have to do a flip toe, and then they'll say, and then one day somebody started telling me to do a flip loop, and all of a sudden it was easier. But they've conditioned themselves to believe something, right? Has that happened? I think that for sure that is a big thing. Your mind can your perspective can change, limit, and it can change an outcome. I think in my situation with the Salchow, it was the quad jump that I did. So therefore I put the most time into the technique on that jump on just doubles, triples, that I think that amount of time that I put in had really cemented my brain to body connection with that jump. And
like you can do it out of bed. Like I can go brush my teeth and do a triple sow, right?
yeah.
I can't, but okay. Favorite spin?
So I think I have two, actually.
Okay, you're allowed.
I always loved doing my change foot combo spin that ended in the headless spin.
Okay. That's your signature, right? I have to shout that out.
I always did that at the end. And I always put it at the end for a reason, because I get so dizzy doing it.
Now we know, because we thought it was to get the standing O, because a lot of people
that too. That helps.
Yeah.
But I love the fast feeling of like pulling up from the sit and just feeling that physics in action, basically. Is what it is.
Now, does that hurt? Like, is your neck sore afterward, or just dizziness?
No, just dizzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because luckily I'm not doing it for that long,
right?
Or too often. But I would say my other favorite spin, and I love it because of its simplicity. I love doing a back camel and switching to a forward camel. So I love just doing a plain camel, because I just love the feeling of spinning very fast in that laid out, like stretched out position with a nice line. Just love the way
if you do a good camel, there's nothing more beautiful, right, than a beautiful camel spin.
Camels and laybacks, I think, for sure. Like,
no, do you do layback? Do you do layback?
I can do like kind of one.
Modified?
Probably for a guy, it's probably a good one, but for a girl's standard, it's not good.
I remember Adam had a layback in his things, and some people would pressure, like, oh, it's kind of effeminate, you should probably take it out. Plushenko did a layback. Like,
no, I think it's I think really nice, aesthetically nice position.
Especially if you can do a good one.
Yeah.
Why not?
If you have the nice back extension for it.
And the nice attitude with the lifted knee.
Yep.
Go for it, right?
I think that's one of the prettiest spins in skating.
I agree. Okay, what about the best competition, like geographically? Like where you got to like soak in some culture?
I think my favorite was the Junior Grand Prix that I did in Innsbruck, Austria.
Oh, okay.
I loved it. We were nestled in the little valley in the Alps. It was really cool. Really cool.
Where did you fly into? Do you remember?
We flew right into Innsbruck, yeah. Well, we flew through, Vienna.
Okay.
And then we took a little propeller plane down.
Well, you kind of have to, like going to Sun Valley, Yeah,
walked off the plane. You walk down the stairs right onto the pavement. So.
Like I felt like I was in the Flintstones when I went to Sun Valley. We were like on this prop plane, and then it's like, we have to check the winds to see if we can land today. Yeah. And it was like, what? So, your favorite book, movie?
That is really tough because I'm a big movie and reader.
Okay.
I can tell you that my favorite series of all time, I'm a big fantasy guy. So my favorite, like Lord of the Rings, of course, I love it. But my favorite series of all time is a series called The Wheel of Time.
Okay.
It's 14 books long. I've read the whole series 3 times now in my life. Yes.
During the pandemic.
I will keep reading it for the rest of my life. But it is literally one of the best. If you're into fantasy, read Wheel of Time.
Okay.
But I can't really pick one. But
that's okay. The genre, though, you do like fantasy fiction, right? So that's So were you a Harry Potter person?
Of course. Yeah. Harry Potter is what got me into reading. My mom read them to me and my little brother when we were kids. So that's where it all started.
All right. I loved Star Trek, so that's my version of Harry Potter. Yeah. The favorite skater or program that you didn't do that you saw someone else do from all time, like going back to, Sonia Henney.
Of all time. That's so difficult because there's so many good skaters.
Well, just give me 2 or 3 then.
Okay, so I love Basically anything Carolina Costner. So I loved her Olympic short program to Ave Maria.
Uh,
So good.
I loved her bolero. I have to throw that one out
Of
there. Oh
course.
my God.
So good.
Yeah.
That Ave Maria was just like she was floating. I would say probably guys. I love I would say Josh Ferris. I loved
That short?
the short and the Schindler's List program.
Oh, yeah. I love the Schindler's
both.
List, yeah. But the short was just so like,
yeah,
it was over in a blink.
yeah.
I just love.
And that's what great programs do.
Yeah.
When they're over, you're like, I want more.
Yeah, I tend to. You know what? That was a good one. And the classics, you can't go wrong with. I just saw Nick McCarville's show the other day, and they were showing snippets of Christy Yamaguchi, and to think like how many years ago that was, and she was doing triple Lutz, triple toe.
I know.
And you're like, Christy, like you'd be going to the Olympics now.
Yep.
So, yeah. That was amazing. Now, I talk about words, and I love to reframe words. So sometimes people will say, "Oh, I regret not doing," or "I wish I hadn't. I wish that didn't happen." And I'll say, "Let's reframe it to say, I'm surprised that happened, but now I know it was to get me this." So, is there something that perhaps happened to you that was it opened a door to something else?
I think for me, I would have to say, I'm going back to Skate Canada again, but I would have to say, it was the first Grand Prix experience that I ever had. It was the first time on the ice with, Yuzu Hanyu and a lot of other people, and Adam was there as well.
At Skate Canada? Okay.
Yeah.
Where was that? In Kelowna or?
Lethbridge, Alberta.
Alberta, okay.
Yeah, so way out in the west.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember, I had a terrible short program, and of course, I wish that hadn't happened. But like you said, that was the catalyst for me to go on then and have one of the best skates of my life, and what I will always go back. And
people are going to YouTube that. Is that available on YouTube? So we're going to do Tim Dielinski, Skate Canada 2015. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, terrific.
But yeah, so like that enabled me to have that amazing skate. So I think that's a very good thing to be able to do, is to go back and change the way you think about things like that.
Right. Perspective, right?
It's all about perspective.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to wrap up, and we're going to just quickly go through those takeaways that your trophy life brought for you. So number one, something that happened like over 5 years ago is still leaving a solid impression on you about, not doing something for somebody else or something else, right? To do it for yourself, to trust your training.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the times I feel like with skating, we can get so hung up with, wanting to do well, for the approval of others, whether that's the skating community or if it's, the association, it's wanting, I want these results so that I can get this and that or whatever. And I think a lot of the times, skaters, and I fell into this trap as well. We want to do good because of that. But I think ultimately, what's going to lend you to have the best results is to skate for yourself and to want it for yourself and do it for yourself, not because of these people or these things. And then ultimately, I think you'll skate better, and then you'll end up getting those things in the end anyway.
Right.
So you need to be focused on yourself and just, do what makes you happy, do it for you. Right. And then everything else will fall into place.
Perfect. You're a philosopher. Now, that was 5 years ago.
Experience and so.
That was 5 years ago. Where are we going to find you in 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I would like to be probably coming to the end of finally finishing my undergraduate degree.
Okay.
which I want to go back and I want to switch and do music education. Mm-hmm. And I would love to be a music teacher at a school, mm-hmm. Middle or high school, or, my dream job would be a high school orchestra teacher, I think, because I really love that. And I think I would love teaching it and passing on my passion for music. It's something I think we need more of. So that's where I would like to be.
And you can also coach the skating club, right? Mm-hmm. At the school.
Yep. Yeah.
That sounds perfect. Well, thank you so much for, allowing us to come into your life during the pandemic and catching us up and telling us how full your life is after skating, and that you're still bringing many of those elements of skating into your professional life. And I think we need more teachers like you that can truly reflect and want not to just dump what you know into someone else's head, but are willing to listen to see what other people really want and help them connect to those dreams. So
thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again for coming today. And that will wrap it up for this episode of this trophy. I almost said the skating life. That's not true. That will wrap it up today for this episode of the Trophy Life. Thank you, Tim.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.